Just to welcome everybody, we just allow people into the virtual room and then we'll start off with our almost lunchtime, our afternoon webinar for the business and community sector in Dublin. So you're very welcome, and we'll just give it half a minute before we do the introductions. And you'll note we are recording this and it will be available on our website and social media, hopefully not requiring too many edits as we go on this afternoon. So look, I'm going to do the introductions. My name is Sinead Dooley. I'm Head of Public Engagement with eirgrid, and I'm joined today by my colleague virtually as well, Enda Gallagher. Enda Garrity even, who's our Programme Manager on the Dublin programme. So look, we're here this afternoon in one of a number of webinars that we're hosting. They're public information webinars, basically, for us to give a kind of a high-level overview of our plans in eirgrid to upgrade the underground power cables in Dublin. And I suppose in terms of the introductory comments, last year many of you on the call will be aware and indeed inputted and communicated and consulted with us in terms of our comprehensive and substantive public engagement around shaping an electricity future. And that's where we engage with all sectors of society, including community, business, industry. We debated and we discussed our approach in eirgrid to delivering a clear roadmap to achieving renewable energy targets under the government's climate action plan of 80% renewable energy by 2030. So Situ, that has provided us with a roadmap and a planned approach to delivering the necessary infrastructure to support all of these initiatives and works. And today we're going to look at what this means for Dublin. So how are we shaping Dublin's electricity future? We'll provide you with the overview of what powering up Dublin is going to look like, and we'll walk you through our process of planning and engagement and some of the timelines. So we've a very short agenda, and apologies we didn't change the date on it, mea culpa. So look, it's who are eirgrid, what we do to differentiate between ourselves, I suppose, and DSO. There's confusion on occasions between ourselves and eirgrid. So just ourselves and ESB even. What's happening in the area, what is powering up Dublin. Again, our timelines, just to walk you through that, our approach to consultation and engagement, how you will get involved, and the question and answer session. And just again to say at the outset when we'll talk to the consultation and engagement, it's very important for us to state at the very outset that no decisions have been made on the specific routes of this project. And Enda will walk you through where the substations are, what we're looking at and getting from A to B. But in terms of the engagement with you, business owners, you, the community, no definitive routes have been decided. And at all stages, we will engage fully with you and right throughout the statutory consultation process. So I think it's important to say that at the outset before Enda does the presentation. So without further ado, I'll gladly hand you over for the technical end of the presentation to Enda, and we'll do questions and answers in the chat box as you go or at the end. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. You're very welcome. So who is eirgrid and what do we do? So eirgrid was responsible for ensuring a safe, secure, reliable electricity system to develop and manage and operate the grid, and operate as an independent TSO, and also to connect industry and business for large energy and support a competitive electricity market. We send power from where it is generated to where it is needed, and we operate the wholesale electricity market, both south of Ireland and in the north of Ireland. We operate electricity interconnectors with neighbouring countries, Celtic Interconnector being a project coming on now, but we do not generate electricity. Our core function is to ensure that there's a route to market for generators, and we can meet the demands of our consumers on a large energy level across the country. Next slide, Jamie. So eirgrid's role in the electricity system. So effectively in the electricity system, we have generation. That generation might be traditional in the form of gas turbines located, Money Point, Pool Beg, in the south of the country, Ahada and so on and so forth. And also now with the introduction of solar plants and of course our renewable energy in wind power, primarily in the southwest and the west of the country. This generation then must be brought to the major load centres, and that's brought through where EirGrid resides, which is the transmission system. And the theory and model here is that we drive the electricity up to the highest voltage level to most efficiently move that power from where it is generated, which is often remote, to where it is required, which is often in densely populated areas such as Dublin. Once it reaches the termination point of the transmission system, it steps down in a voltage then to the ESB network. And this is the network that we would most commonly know and see. ESB would have circa 538 kV stations in the country and about 25,000 kilometers of cables around the country as well. So ESB managed then from that point, which is the transition between transmission system and the distribution system. And it's at the distribution system then that we feed that down to local consumers, domestic dwellings, mixed use buildings, and so on. And that's really where we see the largest impact, I suppose, from a public perspective, but also from a local business. Next slide, Jimmy. So what's happening in the Dublin area? So currently, the current electricity system in the Dublin region is primarily cabled. And at the moment in time, our modeling shows that it is simply not capable of meeting the demands for the next number of years and right up to our climate action plan. Like my colleague Sinead had pointed out, reaching 80% renewables by 2030 means that we really are putting pressure on the existing system within the city. As well as this, the security of the system is under pressure. Of course, if we do lose a circuit because of a forced outage or a system event, then we need to make sure that the other circuits within the systems can carry the weight of that power during those events. And of course, now with the climate action plan in full swing, we are actively reducing our dependency on carbon intensive fuels such as peat, such as coal, such as oil. And that brings in the requirement for renewable energy. And that renewable energy often is not as reliable. It is plentiful, but it can be difficult to manage. And of course, the security of the system needs to be balanced. EirGrid's role there is to ensure that that system remains balanced and we do not end up in an event where we start to lose or load shed any of our customers. Demand for electricity is absolutely growing. Part L of our building regulations since 2011 and amended in 2019 moves most domestic dwellings now to a carbon neutral approach, which is very much in the form of air to water or air to air heat pumps in all of our homes. This requires an increase in the demand for electricity and certainly down at the distribution level. As well as this, renewable energy projects are coming. Offshore wind, specifically on the east coast of Ireland, is developing and is moving forward. And of course, we have to ensure that our system is capable of harnessing that energy and moving that into the major load centres within the city. Next slide, Jamie. So on the right-hand side here is a graphical map, just I suppose illustrating where the major arteries of the transmission network are within the Dublin region. And what we have here is an indication of the pressure that we see on those circuits. And at the moment, we have an estimated 5,000 to 6,000 overload hours within the year up into the latter half of the decade, meaning that the existing circuits that are there are simply not fit for purpose. They do not have the capability of moving that power around the city. The major stations that we have under our program at the moment are Poolbeg on the Poolbeg Peninsula, Carrick Mines, Inchicore in the west of Dublin, Finglas, which you may know off the M50, and you can see it from the M50, and Belcamp substation as well. These are the major stations that are involved and at the termination stations between our cable projects. Next slide, Jamie. So where's the demand coming from? As I'd outlined, housing. There is a huge need now for the electrification of our housing needs, and that right down to our solar panels on our roofs, exporting back onto the grid, our demand for electric vehicle charges. The heating in the homes now is moving to electric sources through heat pumps. Transport electrification, of course, we're looking at now the Metro North. in Dublin, and also most of the rail network in Dublin that is diesel at present will be moving to an electrified model. Large energy users in the vicinity as well have grown over a number of years. Dublin is a multinational city now, and we have a huge volume of IT infrastructure in the city ever developing. Distribution level customers as well. Of course, the power that we bring from large generation across the country gets stepped down to the ESB within the city. So the ESB manage the 110 kV and the 38 kV system within the city, and we must be able to provide that power to ESB from those renewable resources so that they can distribute that to the homes. Offshore renewable energy, as I've outlined previous, is coming in, and as that power pumps in from the coast, that is going to drive the requirement for the replacement of circuits as that moves up into the major load centres within the city, which are generally in the west and the northwest of the city. Next slide, Jamie. So what is powering up Dublin? So the programme of works entails about 50 kilometres of cable within the city. We have a number of projects that are looking at the replacement of the existing assets that are there that are aging, most of which those circuits were installed in the mid 1970s. We're looking at those existing substations that we had up on the previous map. We're extending those substations, expanding those substations, and replacing a lot of the primary plant that exists in those substations to meet these needs. We're also identifying new cable routes and new opportunities to link these substations to further strengthen the grid and add security. Next slide, Jamie. So the study area we're looking at pretty much encompasses most of what's inside the M50. We have a number of projects that will trickle into the north. However, most of them reside within the M50 zone. The substations are Inchicore, Finglas, Belcamp, North Wall, Poolbeg, and Carrickmines. And if we bring up the next image, Jamie. So effectively, these are all connected by 220 kV networks, which move the vast amount of power between these points. At Inchicore, then that steps out to multiple DSO or ESB owned and operated substations that feed most of the industry around the Inchicore area. The same with Finglas as well, and also now with Belcamp. Poolbeg is at the heart of these projects, and as we can see on the image here, all of the major arteries for the transmission system at 220 kV join at the Poolbeg Peninsula, because originally this project was one of the largest projects at the time and provided most of the power into Dublin. It is now still a critical asset, and it is now still a critical node for us to uncap most of the Climate Action Plan goals and move into that 80% renewable energy. But we must replace these circuits. These circuits are not sufficient for the journey we're taking over the next 8 to 9 years. Next slide, Jamie. So the specific projects that we're looking at. So on the underground networks, we are replacing the North Wall to Poolbeg cable, which is circa 5 kilometres. That cable does go underneath the River Liffey and across over to the North Wall station from the Poolbeg Peninsula. So the south side to the north side across the Liffey. From there, then that circuit goes on from Finglas up, or from North Wall up to Finglas, and that's circa about 12 kilometres of cable. At the moment, that's in a high pressure fluid filled circuit. And we must replace that because it does not meet the needs of our current system. Poolbeg to Carrickmines, that's a new circuit identified to be replaced. That's a low pressure fluid filled circuit, and that's about 14 kilometres. 2 circuits over from Inchicore, as we saw on the previous map, and also we are looking at a potentially new circuit between somewhere in the south of the city and somewhere in the west of the city that will help move that power that's generated in the southwest of the country and the southeast of the country now with offshore wind into the areas it's required. The stations we'll be working on, specifically Poolbeg, as we saw in the previous image. Poolbeg is at the heart of most of the 220 circuit within Dublin. Next to this is Belcamp, which is now a considerable zone for development and also for feeding a lot of the northern electrification projects in the Fingal area and north of the city. As well as this, we must be able to provide power to ESB and effectively do that by bringing in renewable energy with a secure grid to ensure that they have sufficient supply to distribute that down to homes, to businesses, to schools, to offices, and so on. And that's what we refer to as bulk supply. That's the point where we drop it down from 220 volts to 110 to the voltage level that ESB can manage. So we have 3 projects: North County, West County, East Wall area. These are the bulk supply points that are needed. Additional capacity will be looked for around Carrickmines and Corduff, and we do have quite a large site in Carrickmines that we will be looking to repurpose an awful lot of the plant that exists there. And of course, all of this will be done with collaboration with the communities and the business and the stakeholders across industry and large businesses in Dublin as well. Next slide, Jamie. So this is the task ahead. What you see on the image here is an extract from geospatial imaging software that just indicates, I suppose, what is underneath the city at present. This is Harold's Cross Bridge, and in the cayenne color there, I've marked it out in a blue circle. That is one of the circuits that comes from Inchicore, crosses over the Harold's Cross Bridge and down the northern side of the canal towards Poolbeg. As we can see in the image here, we have a lot of high pressure, low pressure gas, a lot of telecoms, 110 kV, 38 kV networks as well. It's quite complex. And of course, telecommunications have added to this as well. So there'll be an extensive amount of surveys done to ensure that we're selecting the best areas, the best routes, what is viable, what's not viable. And of course, doing this in a way that causes the least amount of disruption to the city. Next slide, Jamie. Just to give you an indication of what the construction phase will look like, post surveys and post desktop evaluations, and once we've established the best routes, excavation will begin within the roadways, and there'll be a civil phase to the project. Usually the pace of this will be between 10 and 20 meters a day. Each of these ducts are usually 9 or 12 meters long. And excavation will begin. We will lay the ducts in a formation and then resurface it. And of course, the length of time we spend on that road will be determined by the purple book and be determined by the road opening licenses that we will have within the vicinity. The road will be resurfaced. Our primary target area will be within the roadways and carriageways. And we'll resurface that and have that back trackable within the guidelines for the specific councils for the specific area at that time. At a later phase, then we will introduce the high voltage circuits that will be pulled through these ducts at usually 300 to 500 meter lengths at a time. And the typical working area is roughly about 3 meters, and the maximum trenches we should be looking at are around about 1.1 meters. Next slide, Jamie. So what's the benefits of all of this? Well, first and foremost is security. Absolutely, at the moment, as we move into a zone of 80% renewables, it's referred to as non-synchronous generation, which means that it's a little bit unstable compared to what we would have been used to with oil-driven or gas-driven generation. So we need to ensure that we have adequate circuits in place to be able to move in the tools that we need, like interconnector power, green renewable power, solar power, offshore wind power, and ensure the system is stable. We must meet the future needs of Dublin. Dublin is expanding and the demand on the electricity system is growing. And as we move to 80% renewables, it'll be at the highest levels demand that we will have seen. Facilitate sustainable energy generation. We have to move forward with how we electrify most of our systems, move away from carbon intense fuels and carbon intense constructions. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that the backbone of the transmission system in Dublin is fit for purpose. And certainly when we look towards 2030, we want to contribute to the economy and the future investment within Dublin and move forward with a carbon neutral approach to Dublin City. And of course, as well as that, there will be community benefit for the impacted areas while the construction works are happening. We will be reaching out, and Sinead and her team will take through this just later. Jamie, can you go next slide, please? So what are the timelines for these works? So between 2022 and 2024, we will be looking at the feasibility and concepts. Of course, we have not selected any routes as yet. We will start to look at potential corridors. And of course, we will be engaging with the public, we'll be engaging with industry, we'll be engaging with all of our colleagues right across all the utilities, prescribed bodies, businesses within the area to get a better understanding of what is the optimum route, what is the optimum approach to delivering these. Of course, we know at the moment that the technology is likely to be cable, and we then will move into the planning phase. Of course, if we come close to canals or we come close to sensitive areas, we will have full ecology reports, full EIA, all of the relevant screening and planning application documentation will be produced for these documents within that period. 2024, then we're hoping on some of those projects to be moving into the construction phase. Of course, this will be done in conjunction with our partners, ESB, and we'll be working with their subcontractors as well to ensure that we can deliver a safe and efficient and least disruptive approach to the delivery of these circuits. We'll be looking then, once these the civil phases are finished, the electrical phases, we'll commission and test these, and then we'll look into the energization of these circuits. Then after this, of course, we'll be looking at the benefit sharing elements of it that Sinead will outline later on. And of course, all the way through this, there will be 100% engagement, consultation and communication throughout these projects to make sure everybody is with us on that journey. Jamie?
Lovely, thanks, Enda. So what exactly is our approach to consultation and engagement? And conscious of everybody's time, what I'm going to do is take you through a very, again, high-level whistle-stop tour of our approach to engagement and consultation within eirgrid. And it's a relatively new public engagement team and a very comprehensive undertaking on our behalf to ensure that we bring everybody with us on this journey. So I think it's important to distinguish between engagement and consultation. As part of this process, as part with every planning process, there will be a statutory consultation period during the planning process that you will have an opportunity, every member of the public will have an opportunity to make a formal submission either to the planning authority or as part of that. But what I want to say to you throughout this, and then to outline the timelines, over the next 2 years, we will be constantly engaging with you, the business community, the community and voluntary sector, industry, and all of our partners across the utility industries and across the state bodies. So as part of that, what we're doing is we're establishing various forum, and we've set up the original one is the Dublin Infrastructure Forum, and many of you on the call will be aware of that. It's where we invited all of the chief executives of the state-owned agencies to the table with the department, with the local authorities, so that we could have a more partnership and collaborative approach. Delivering infrastructure with minimum disruption is not going to be an easy task, and everybody knows that. But many utilities, transport, telecommunications are currently delivering, and our DSO are currently delivering projects. So we're going to, where possible, collaborate together in terms of looking at the existing infrastructure, looking at possible collaboration opportunities, looking at maybe where I know Dublin City Council, we've been engaged with them looking at greenways. Can we use some of the existing infrastructure? Can we look at innovation? Can we look at any initiatives that are coming forward where we can collaborate on that? And we've had, I have to say, great buy-in across all of the state-owned bodies across Dublin. It's very positive. People are on the same page, and all of us want to work together to try and minimise that disruption to the city, but also to make more comprehensive and better advised decision making as well. So 3 other forums we're going to set up over the course of the next number of weeks with a view to, I suppose, holding the first meetings in September. But we'll be reaching out to all of you, and we'll outline how at the end of this. We'll be establishing a community forum which will be based up working through the public participation network in the local authorities, our community councils, our landowners, voluntary and community sector, sporting organisations, to ensure that every voice, or as many voices who want to be at the table, are at the table in terms of that feedback, local intel, two-way conversations, that when it comes down to choosing the specific routes, that we have the key stakeholders at the table, we have the relevant voices, and that we're aware of those constraints, that map that Enda shows that puts the frighteners up me every time I see it in terms of the constraints, that local intel that people on the ground will have in terms of what's a viable option if we're having to divert traffic, what's a more common sense approach, that type of intel that we want to work with you on the ground. In terms of the business community, it's been a horrendous couple of years for the business community. The last thing we want to do is impact even further in terms of your business. So setting up with business interest groups, chambers of commerce, Dublin Town, right across the board. I know IBEC are on the call today to set up a bespoke, specific business forum, again, for that two-way dialogue, but also a common sense approach to our delivery of infrastructure in the city. And industry have fed very much into our consultations process that I spoke to about last year in shaping our electricity future. Industry engage quite openly and quite frequently with our customer team here and with our offshore team in EirGrid, but we want to continue that dialogue. So we'll be establishing an industry forum where you will have an opportunity to not only engage, but to be heard, to be consulted, to be listened to, and to feedback into this process as well. So we'll be establishing that separate industry forum as well for that continued dialogue. Not a huge undertaking in terms of time wise. We don't want to take up your time unnecessarily. So in terms of the forums, we're meeting quarterly at programme level. And obviously as it moves into construction and getting closer to construction phase, post planning, so well down the line, we can roll that back as well in terms of the time commitment. But certainly at the very initial stages where we are now, where everything is on the table for discussion, we really do want that input and for you all collectively to step forward and put forward your representatives or yourselves to join these forums to help us on this process and on this journey. So just in terms of the regular forum meetings, the consultation periods, I know I've said it, but I can't overemphasize it enough. The consultation periods will be throughout the route options. We're appointing community liaison officers at the moment for a day-to-day engagement. We have a really good, strong public engagement team, but I want a number of community liaison officers specific to the Dublin programme so that we have our eyes and ears on the ground working with you in the business community and in the general public, that we have that open door policy, that if you have a question that we're there to answer it. You won't be put onto an answering machine, I promise you that. So the ongoing coordination with stakeholders to minimise this will help us to plan effectively and to avoid duplication. And that's something that's coming through very strongly in our infrastructure forum. And I mean, many of you on the call will have experienced over the years where you've had a road opening for one utility or for whatever reason, and then a month later the same road is opened with a different utility or a different service provider coming. I can't promise it won't be absolutely eradicated, but I can promise you that to date, the engagement we've had across all of the sectors would indicate that everybody is on the same page on this. We want to again collaborate where possible to try and avoid duplication, in particular when it comes to road openings. And again, the ongoing communications and awareness raising from our team. It won't be a case of a letter dropped through the door in an area hoping that people will pick up on it. We will use every opportunity in terms of our old-fashioned, the shopping centres, the webinars, engagements in community halls, bespoke meetings if you want us to meet with your business members, if you want us to meet with your community groups or sporting organisations. Again, an open door policy there. We want to hear from you. So it won't be a case of a leaflet drop and hoping that the information is disseminated. So at the moment, look, just what's happening. I think both of us have outlined clearly what's happening, but just to re-emphasise, we're only at the early stages of planning and development here. We're currently undertaking that range of feasibility studies that Enda outlined to look at the underground cable technologies and what's required in terms of the station upgrades. We do anticipate, hopefully, that we will have by the end of this year, certainly the beginning of next year, more defined draft route options that we can then engage and consult more substantively on with you. And we will not again make a decision on those routes without full consultation and engagement and communication. So how do you get involved? At the moment, quite frankly, the easiest way to get involved and get updates is our email. So whether it's you want to just get involved, which I would love on the relevant forum to you, whether you want to be made aware of when the consultations are taking place and you want to input, or you would like us to speak with your organisation. So to invite us along, hopefully to an in-person, because it's very impersonal looking to a blank screen at the moment. So we want that engagement in person with you. So we'd love to be invited along to talk to you and your organisation. So look, reach out to us. The email is dublin@eirgrid.ie. Our website is there, eirgrid.ie/Dublin, and we have a bespoke consultation portal, which I have to say is active, alive, and responsive. It won't sit there for weeks without a response. So consult.eirgrid.ie is where you can make your feelings known, or you can engage with us and invite us along. So what I'm going to do, we're going to stop sharing the screen even. Tongue twister. And we have a number of questions that have come in advance. We also have a number of questions. So I'm going to invite Jamie. Jamie, you might have noticed, next slide, Jamie has replaced Roll It There Colette. So he's our eirgrid version of Roll It There Colette. So we're going to do a few, but also just to say, if I can, because there's nothing worse as well as people saying, I asked a question they didn't answer. They said they looked for questions they didn't answer. It's quite a number of questions. So any of them that are policy related, and we had a couple of them from industry in particular that may be more policy related, we will respond to you absolutely on email. So today we want to try and address the specific questions that are specific to maybe the technical end of it or whatever of this program, but we will absolutely respond to any questions that have come in advance and try and get through as many as we can at the moment. So Jamie, I'll hand over to you to facilitate and to give us a flavour of some of what's come in and direct them hopefully in this direction.
Super. Thank you, Sinead, and thank you, Enda. Good afternoon, everyone. So we'll kick off with two questions that have come in here from John O'Shea and Daniel Barnes. And I know both Enda and Sinead have made references to this already throughout the presentation, but the questions are around have we been engaging with Dublin City Council around trench sharing opportunities, such as those in relation to the district heating network in Poolbeg or other examples like that. So perhaps Enda, you might want to pop in there. You're on mute, Enda. Sorry.
Apologies. Thanks, Jamie, for that. So yes, we have reached out to Dublin City Council, and we have got the consultative forum and the industry forum there as well, which is specifically going to look at opportunities to collaborate within the city. We want to take every opportunity to understand everyone's developments within the city and to see which of their projects are, I suppose, technically acceptable for us to either join with their projects, but more specifically really learn from their projects where they may have some lessons learned specifically about what worked well for them, what didn't work well. But absolutely, we will be collaborating with the both Dublin City Council, Fingal County Council, Dún Laoghaire on any opportunities that are there to specifically get the heavy lifting, the civil element of the engineering and construction phase done in a manner that is open the road once and close the road and be done.
And if I can add to that as well, I have to say that Dublin City Council were well represented at the Infrastructure Forum meeting as well. And again, going back to when we get into the specifics of each route and when we're delivering with them, every section of Dublin City Council through planning, roads, environment will be engaging very closely with us, down to the traffic management team in Dublin City Council have their bespoke traffic management. So we will be liaising with them directly on a daily basis to ensure that we're again collaborating fully on that. So absolutely great input and interaction and collaboration with the City Council.
Great. So a really practical one that came in advance for our speakers was one from a local business who depends on their phone line for business. And they're just wondering, could they expect any disruption to their phone lines during construction of the project? Maybe Enda.
Thanks, Jamie. Sorry. Still getting phone calls in on the other device. Apologies, Jamie. So, of course, if we go back to the image I had on the screen, we can see that there is records in place of what's underground, and also on top of that, we will be doing ground penetrating radar studies to really confirm is what's recorded accurate. Of course, over the last 10, 15 years, There is a lot of services, I suppose, that have gone into the ground that are not recorded, and maybe the information that we have is not fully accurate. So while I wouldn't anticipate we would have much outages on the telecommunications network, given the volume of it, specifically as we move to the east of the city, it's highly likely that during the laying of any linear infrastructure, be it gas, electricity, or otherwise, that we may come into a conflict area with those services. However, we will be liaising with, and anytime we open the road there, we will have representatives from those utilities that will advise us on what is the best approach and how can we mitigate that outage and limit that time, because there is opportunities for some services to duck and some services to dive around those existing services. So we'll be minimizing those.
Thank you, Enda. And we've received, it's not really a question, but it's a more of a compliment here from one of our key stakeholders on another project, Kildare Mead Grid Upgrade, Alan Shine. So I'm just going to post this there in the questions section and thank Alan for coming along and showing interest today. Alan's just saying that he works with eirgrid on Kildare Mead Grid Upgrade and has had an excellent experience of consultation engagement with us.
Thanks for that, Alan. And I'll take positive feedback every day of the week, but just a shout out to all of the Chambers of Commerce and James Kiernan as well and the team, but right across all of the, including Alan in Kildare and Paula in Meath, all of the Chambers of Commerce have been a huge support in terms of engaging their membership as part of the shaping consultation and in terms of sitting down and engaging on our community forum as well in project delivery. So just to reciprocate that and say thanks to Alan on that. Just Jamie, I got here and it was remiss of us. We alluded to the community benefit and I didn't elaborate on it. Someone said, tell me more about community benefit schemes. So rather than go into it in too much detail, and again, I could meet this person in person on it. All of our new infrastructure projects have a community benefit scheme attached to it. And I suppose in the past, it was a situation where everybody, not just eirgrid, would open a community fund and accept applications. And sometimes it was felt, and coming from a business and community background, as many of my team are, it was felt that maybe we didn't have the greatest impact, or perhaps those organisations who were not as well organised as other didn't have their fair share of the funding. So we've taken a different approach in eirgrid. So what we'll be doing in the next number of months will be in establishing the forum, also set up somebody in the area, possibly from an NGO, to work with communities in terms of capacity building, to look at your area needs, your local area plans, working with the local community voluntary sporting business organisations to see what projects will have the greatest impact in your community. What are your needs? This is not a top-down approach in eirgrid saying what we'll fund or what we'll support. We have three streams of funding: community, sustainability and biodiversity at the heart of them. So basically based around the SDGs, of which there are 17, many of you on the call will know, but just it will be very much a bottom-up approach where communities will decide what you need most and how we can best support you. And that'll be part of the community forum remit as well, is setting those terms, conditions, criteria and guidelines to ensure that that happens. So that's a brief outline and we'll engage further with you if you want on that. Thanks, Jamie.
Super, thanks to Sinead. And that actually rounds up all the questions we've received so far that relate, of course, specifically to this project. As Sinead said, there are some policy questions that came in that we'll come back to you via email with the broader eirgrid team involved in that. But I think there'll be plenty of opportunities for engagement in the coming weeks and months.
Perfect. And we were conscious of people's time, which is why we kept it very tight. But again, Jamie, I'll get you to put up the last slide in how you can engage with and contact us. So I will just encourage you to do so, because look, too often people only engage when there's a difficulty or a problem. We're trying to avoid difficulties, avoid problems by doing our engagement well in advance of us putting a shovel or a digger in the ground. So please, now is your opportunity to engage with us. We would welcome all feedback and really do appreciate you taking the time out of a busy day to join us for this overview. So without further ado, we'll end that and email us at
Sorry,
Dublin.
Sinead.
Sorry, we're not
to
ending
jump
that.
in. No, we haven't. A few more questions came in there just as you were speaking.
Here was
I'll
I
be right
working
on them.
up to a crescendo and a fabulous finish, but go there, roll it there, Colette.
Thanks, Sinead. So Ger Farrell has submitted a question here is, are these works the responsibility of EirGrid or ESB networks?
And you're on mute again. I can
Sorry, guys.
take it, but yeah, go on.
So EirGrid are responsible for planning and developing the network and really modeling and making the investment decision on what we're going to build on the transmission system. As part of the agreement since 2006, ESB deliver the work in partnership with EirGrid. So it'll be ESB and ESB's contractors who will do the design and the construction, but the planning and the management and the client representation of the project will be done by EirGrid. And of course, when the project is close to completion, it will be I suppose, energized with the support of EirGrid and of course the client engineers that we would have working on those projects. So the delivery phase of it, which is step 6 of our grid delivery framework, is done by ESB.
Thanks, and there's a related question there from Ger as well around potential remedial works that are required before these projects in the city that are currently disrupting businesses. Again, is that more of an ESB responsibility, or is there that one at EirGrid?
So the remedial works, we may have enabling works in advance of our projects, and we don't envisage them at the moment. However, I will point out that ESB are currently engaged in a large volume of asset replacement work on underground networks within Dublin. And their program of work is right up until 2035. So there is a large volume of work being carried out by the DSO on their 110 and their 38 kV circuits. So that may be the reference here.
Great, thanks, Enda. Sinead, sorry for disrupting your closeout there, and back over to you.
Not at all. You ruined my momentum, Jamie. But joking aside, look, and this is why I do think it's important that we answered any question that was put to us. So thanks for that. Look, again, just finally, email us at dublin@eirgrid.ie, and we do hope to see a number of you on the call joining us on those forum as outlined. So thank you for your time, and we'll leave it at that.